Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology turned podcast. Everyone, welcome into the program. I hope that you're doing well and you are having not just a good week, but a fantastic week. Everyone, welcome into the program. And today on the show, if you haven't heard, we have the one, the only Mr. Ralph Bond. He is our science and tech trends correspondent who joins us every Friday to talk about, well, anything that science and tech kind of covers, which turns out a little bit of everything. So it's a very fun segment that we love doing on Fridays, just to kind of take you into the weekend and, give you some good news. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start with computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including the show notes. Show notes are a big part of this. By the time that you hear this, you'll be able to read and see the show notes. And yeah, you can follow along, or you can skip ahead if you are feeling cheeky, or of course at the end we're going to talk about the honorable mentions as well. All of that and more at computeramerica.com. That's just the best place to find everything that we do. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and just bring Ralph on and we'll, get this started right. So everyone, once again, he is a longtime Computer America contributor. And of course, he has become our science and tech trends correspondent where, he covers a little bit of everything. So Ralph, welcome back onto the program. How you been?
I'm doing great. And it's great to be back. And friends, if you're new to the show, welcome, and let's explain what we do. Every Friday, Ben and I highlight 4 recent articles that show us key trends and developments in, get ready, artificial intelligence, robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, agricultural technology, space research, physics. Wow, you name it across the board. Here's the key, though, the most important thing of all. We're going to give you an oasis of positive news thanks to the world of science and technology.
Absolutely. Is that all? So no, that's certainly has been very fun over the last couple of years to kind of go over these and see, trends, I guess, is always the best thing to point out because, these stories come up again and again and the research and, even sometimes luckily we even do stories that something that we covered, a couple of months ago is now actually out in the world. And it's always good to see. So with that being said, Ralph, let's go ahead and kick this off with story number 1.
Yeah, story number 1 comes from an outfit called topspeed.com, which is all about the automotive industry. A really great publication because they do incorporate some technology stories. And this is a really good example. So the headline here is Ultra Accurate Optical Atomic Clocks Could Enable True Self-driving cars. And I'll say right up front, the technology we're going to talk about has implications beyond just self-driving cars, by the way. But a really, really interesting story. So let's dive into this. Little setup here. One of the significant limitations of current self-driving car systems is their reliance on GPS, which can be unreliable or unavailable in certain settings, for example, tunnels, dense urban areas, etc., right? So I think we all know that. And this article, though, highlights advances with optical atomic clocks, in specific, reducing their size to a form factor that would be practical for including into a car's electronic system. This, in turn, might, I want to emphasize might because we're talking about research, might allow self-driving vehicles to eventually maintain precise internal timing and navigation without having to depend solely on external satellite signals. So that's the setup here. That's what we're talking about. Really interesting stuff. And I don't know about you, Ben, but I've heard of atomic clocks, but optical atomic clock? What's that? Well, in the show notes, what I do is I insert additional educational information to augment the articles, because a lot of times the articles assume you know what they're talking about. Well, I don't know much, so I need to insert some help for myself as well. So here's the deal about optical atomic clocks. They're ultra-precise timekeeping devices that leverage transitions in atoms or ions occurring at the optical frequencies in the visible or near visible parts of the electromagnetic spectrum rather than the microwave frequencies used in traditional atomic clocks. Well, that's a lot to dive into and take in on a Friday morning, but there it is.
And I knew that there were so many challenges to bringing self-driving cars, but I've never heard specifically of this one because, Ralph, I guess up until this point, not a lot of good answers to solve it. So they're just like, because I've heard of the sensors, the cameras,
Right.
the software, like all the typical self-driving car problems, but not the timing. And, that helps with navigation. This is interesting.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. So here we go into the story now. Researchers at Purdue University in Indiana and Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden, interesting collaboration, have developed a new type of optical atomic clock that is significantly smaller than current optical atomic clock systems and could make the global positioning system much more accurate. So again, I'm going to insert another side note or additional information because, well, okay, it's great they made this thing small enough to go into a car, but how do I have a context for this? Well, get a load of this. Size matters in the world of optical atomic clocks because they're typically housed in research laboratories and can vary in size, but they're generally quite large, comparable to the size of a standard desk or larger. And many setups require multiple optical tables, lasers, vacuum systems, and electronics, often taking up an entire room for an optical atomic clock. So before this development, optical atomic clocks were far too large to play a role in a car, truck, etc. navigation system. So there's the context for why this is an important story. And to go on here,
real quick, for those who are, who can see the video portion, all of this behind Ralph and I, we did not go to the laboratory, but no, all of this is an atomic clock. And it's about, like Ralph said, about the size of a desk, and it's completely set up. And it looks like a mad scientist's dream. It's quite complicated, Ralph. So I could see shrinking that being important.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad you brought that image up because that really makes the point. The research team has made strides in miniaturizing optical atomic clocks by using something called on-chip microcombs. Oh my goodness, we're going to talk about that in a second. This innovation could make it possible to create size-appropriate GPS systems for self-driving cars 1,000 times more accurate than current navigation technology. Wow, improving navigation precision to within centimeters rather than meters. Oh my gosh. Now, in the show notes, I have an extensive insert on what are on-chip microcombs, but very quickly, they're also known as optical frequency combs. They're advanced devices that produce a spectrum of evenly spaced light frequencies within a single chip. Wow. And there's more data in the show notes. If you want to get that, come out to computeramerica.com and you can get that information. But here are the key points about how small-scale optical atomic clocks could be a game changer for navigation of vehicles. Well, for one thing, they offer unprecedented precision. Optical atomic clocks use laser frequencies rather than microwaves, providing timing accuracy that far surpasses traditional atomic clocks. And this precision is crucial since even tiny timing errors can impact sensor data fusion and real-time decision-making in self-driving cars, okay? And then going on here, it says optical atomic clocks offer enhanced navigation and sensor fusion. And as you pointed out a moment ago, Ben, autonomous vehicles rely on a multitude of sensors like LiDAR, cameras, and radar, and must be perfectly synchronized. So that's the big challenge here. And the incredibly stable time signals from optical atomic clocks could allow vehicles to integrate sensor data with remarkable accuracy. This means better positioning and navigation, especially in environments where GPS signals are weak, obscured, or vulnerable to interference. Wow, pretty amazing stuff.
It certainly seems like for everyone out there who has experienced any kind of latency, obviously my first go-to is video games, but I'm sure there's lots of situations where on your computer you click, you do something, you have to wait half a second, and it just throws off everything that you're trying to do, makes it way more complicated. That latency, it seems like, Ralph, that's what they're really tackling with this, to the point where there's almost no latency because it's happening in the vehicle itself, which is insane.
Exactly. And another way to kind of distill this whole implication of this research is two things. One, 1,000 times more accurate than current navigation systems, getting us down to centimeters of accuracy versus meters of accuracy. And that's the thing that's so exciting. And to wrap things up, while the immediate focus of the research by Purdue University and Chalmers University in Sweden is on enhancing self-driving cars. That's the initial motivation. The improvement in timing accuracy with optical atomic clocks has broader implications. Such clocks could impact telecommunication, fundamental physics research, and other navigation systems, paving the way for innovations across multiple sectors. And once again, friends, what Ben and I do is we look at things that are trends, things that are early research that have implications for where we may be going in the future. You're not going to see these systems next week at your local auto show, no. But it's a great breakthrough and holds great promise.
Absolutely. So yeah, and I was just looking into how accurate kind of consumer grade is, like for smartphones and whatnot, and I'm sure that applies to cars versus like military, and like honestly, everyone's trying to improve GPS, even from kind of back in the day, but something like this is built in, baked in, and it does not rely on outside signals is going to be better every day of the week. Or at least even, Ralph, just a redundant system is always going to be preferable to, a single point failure, which single point failure, a term that I have come to know quite frequently with some of our stories. So there you go. Great story, amazing, and I hope to see more of it. Story number one, story number two. Let's go ahead and skip on down here, and let's talk a little bit about quantum computers. And this is, I was actually lucky enough last time I went to CES, which is, now a couple of years ago now, but I was actually able to see one that they had set up on the floor. And Ralph, they didn't give tours. Like, they could have taken people inside and shown the computer. They didn't give tours. Like, you could see the case and they had it set up there in the middle of the showroom floor. But again, it's kind of one of the situations where old-timey computers, you stood inside them and used the computer by, essentially being the CPU. Now this one looks more like a storage locker than a room that you could go into. The size is coming down. The ability to buy these things is really at the heart of this article here, and it's finally getting more manageable. So, story number two.
Yeah, this is great, and this comes from good old techradar.com. Headline: This is the first quantum computer you can actually buy and use and power. Equal One, that's the name of the company, and the computer in question is called the Bell-1. Equal One's Bell 1 uses a standard power socket. So there's a lot going on with this story. Now, the implication of this, by the way, is not the idea that you or I would have this at home or something. This is really more for data centers, but it's still a really important move forward in terms of scaling down the size of a quantum computer and making it more practical and possible and more easily purchasable by most likely data center outlets. But anyway, this news is all about a potentially significant announcement from a company called Equal One. And Equal One is focused on developing silicon-based quantum computing technology. Their mission is to democratize quantum computing by making it scalable, cost-effective, and, key point here, accessible. That's really the big ding of this story. They leverage something called silicon spin qubits and have created Unity Q, the world's first hybrid quantum classical chip. Oh my gosh, there's a lot going on. Ben and you and I have talked about qubits a lot in quantum computing over the several years, in fact. But this bit about silicon spin qubits, I inserted a big side note of research to say, what the heck is that? Because again, the author of the article assumes you know what this is. Well, very quickly, a silicon spin qubits are a type of quantum bit used in quantum computing, and they leverage the spin of an electron or nucleus in silicon to represent quantum information. I'm going to stop because there's a whole lot more if you want to find out what is a silicon spin qubit. If you want to be a really groovy guy and impress your friends when you talk about quantum computing, because yes, silicon spin qubits. What? Anyway, check it out in the show notes. You can learn all about it.
Nothing impresses the ladies on a Friday night like silicon spin qubits, for sure, for sure.
Oh yeah, or it could be a lady repellent. Anyway. No, wait a minute. Women are into science too, Ralph.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
here
of
we
course.
Go. So here we go. Equal One recently introduced the Bell One, the first small-scale quantum computer designed for real-world deployment, integrating seamlessly into an existing high-performance computing environment without requiring specialized infrastructure or extensive cooling. As you may know, with computing in this area, cooling is a big, big deal in quantum computing. So operating on just 1,600 watts, it installs easily and stands as one of the best workstations, bringing quantum computing from research labs to practical applications in artificial intelligence, financial modeling, scientific research, advanced simulations, cryptography, and optimization. Now, a side note here, a typical desktop PC uses around 200 to 500 watts, depending on its components and workload. This box is 1,600 watts, so it's considerably more, but you can plug this thing into an outlet, as I understand it from the article. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, some of the higher end, we're just coming out of winter, space heaters that you would plug into, that you would plug into the wall. Like the top end of the consumer range is like 1,500 watts, so it's a little bit more than some of the biggest space heaters that you'd buy. So it's really down there. Yeah.
In the world of quantum computing, it definitely is.
Yeah.
Going on here, it says it's the first fully rack-mounted system. That's why I said this is not for Ben and I to have on our desks, but for data centers. So a first fully rack-mounted system that fits into standard data centers. The Bell One overcomes one of quantum computing's biggest engineering challenges by using a self-contained cryogenic cooling system to maintain its silicon quantum processor at 0.3 Kelvin, which is minus 272.85 degrees Celsius, without an external dilution refrigerator, making it an engineering marvel that operates efficiently within the noisy and thermally demanding environment of an enterprise data center. Wow, and a little side note, okay, the rest of the world gets Celsius, but we need help here in the United States. Side note, minus 272.85 degrees Celsius is approximately minus 459.13 Fahrenheit, which is just a tiny bit above absolute zero. So to consider that they've created this small-scale, data center-appropriate, rack-mountable thing that can cool itself to that level is what? It's amazing. And one little thing, Ben, as I was going through this article, I kept thinking, okay, this is fascinating. What does this thing cost? And I tried to find out cost information from the Equal One website, other sources. Didn't find a mention about pricing, so I can't help you there. And in the show notes, rather, I have more technical specs and highlights if you want to dive into that. Check it out at the show notes. But this is a very interesting development, and you can bet there'll be many more companies to follow suit on what Equal One has done here.
For sure. And and like they kind of said in the article, this is not for you and me and for everyone else, but it's something that if you run an organization that just needs a little bit of quantum power, and I'm not talking like a Marvel thing, but like a little bit of quantum computing to all the areas that the article outlined, this is your first chance, and short of hiring a laboratory to kind of do the work for you. Very cool. And I was honestly just looking up the price as well. Sometimes we see this with like higher end. There was a company that was selling like a 500 terabyte hard drive or something like that. It was something insane. It's something super niche, high end, not consumer facing at all. And Ralph, they didn't publish the price for that, but like people went in, talked to them, and essentially you have to go to the company and say, hey, I'm interested, how much to get this? And they'll work out, the product, the shipping, all that good stuff. if I'm betting, Ralph, this is probably in the $500,000 $1 million range. From what I would gather, it's a very specialized, delicate piece of equipment that they would have to, honestly, probably install themselves. You just tell them where. Yeah. So every little thing has to be handled by the company. Not exactly consumer facing. Call them, ask for a price. You're going to be shocked, and it's going to make your hair turn white, but that's okay. It's available. That is the key point. Exactly. Very, very cool. So there you go. Story number 2. Story number 3, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about, Ralph, whenever we talk about drones, sometimes we talk about search and rescue drones. We talk about little worm-like drones that can go into like rubble of buildings after disasters. We talk about, so many different kinds of drones, like, maybe they go to Mars and go crazy places. They can go places that normal things really can't. And I think the Mariana Trench has a special place in our zeitgeist, I guess is the word.
Yes.
I don't use that word often, as like the most inaccessible. Well, let's talk about sending drones to the Mariana Trench.
Yes. This is a great story from robots, one of my favorite. Yeah, one of my favorite outlets has this story called, the outlet is interestingengineering.com, a wonderful outlet. Headline, I couldn't resist this, shape-shifting robot that swims now explores Mariana Trench, reaching a depth of 34,776 feet. What? Wow. I mean,
very cool.
Wow. There's so many engineering challenges with creating a small-scale robot that can do this, and we're going to get into it. That's the key part of the whole story here. So a little side note, though, the Mariana Trench is a fascinating and extreme natural wonder of our planet. The deepest known point in the trench is called the Challenger Deep, which plunges to an astounding depth of about 36,037 feet, or 10,984 meters. To put this into perspective, if Mount Everest were placed inside the trench, its peak would still be more than a mile underwater. That should give you some sensation or some appreciation of the Mariana Trench.
And for some reason, we needed to send James Cameron down there. I don't know why, but he made a good movie, so it was worth it.
Yeah. And so here we go. Here's the story. Researchers at the Beihang, I hope I'm saying that right, Beihang, Beihang University in China, have created a tiny, shape-shifting robot that swims, crawls, and glides freely in the deep sea. Now, deep sea exploration devices to date are typically large and can harm fragile ecosystems. Developing smaller, lightweight robots for extreme underwater environments is challenging due to the need for components to withstand high pressures and very low temperatures. That's your challenge. This is as challenging as outer space, right? Mm-hmm. And to overcome this set of challenges, the group created a soft actuator that uses snap-through action to shift between two stable states. And I know this is geeky, but bear with us. Because of its incompressible parts, the actuator can store a more elastic energy at greater pressures. As a result, motions become stronger and faster at deeper depths. Stronger and faster the deeper you go for this actuator. Now, in the show notes, I said snap through action. Okay, now what's that all? I've inserted a little tutorial there that you can read about what snap through action is. I'm not going to take time to get into that. Come out to computeramerica.com, get the show notes if you want to geek out on that. The researchers built a robot with these actuators, also a microcontroller and onboard battery, and shape memory alloy springs. Wow. To initiate the snap-through action of the actuators we just talked about. And picture this in your mind. Of course, if you're looking at the show notes, you see a little blurry image of it, but it's there. Yeah. It has legs for crawling, symmetrical tail fins for swimming, and folding pectoral fins for gliding. Wow.
It's, very, for those who are up to date on their their animals. It almost looks like what do you call those things? The Dumbo squid. Pull up a picture of a Dumbo squid. So it has like the two things that kind of come out the bulbous part of it, and it's. You're right. I think they probably took a lot of inspiration from creatures that are found down there. So kind of what works and what doesn't. So yeah.
That's a very good observation. I'm sure they did study the creatures that can survive in these incredible depths, and how can we emulate their anatomy through mechanics. That's a good point. So here we go. The robot can change its locomotion modes by moving its legs and retracting its gliding fins. Because of its adaptability, it can effectively traverse a variety of underwater terrains. And to wrap things up here, the team's study abstract, their research paper, and we have a link to it in the show notes, said, quote, "This study offers design insights into creating next-generation miniature deep-sea actuators and robots, paving the way for future exploration and interaction with deep-sea ecosystems." Bravo, amazing robotics research.
And I was just thinking about a way to, kind of send information, have these things floating down there. And, we've done a lot of different ways to, kind of store energy. We've talked about little mini nuclear reactors, stuff like that. My harebrained scheme, and anyone's free to do this because this is way above my pay grade and probably won't work. Ralph, imagine if you put like a little base station down there with some kind of way to, store, generate electricity, what have you. And you had these little drones that would, come in, charge themselves, and then go back out, and you could have a constant monitoring send back of information of these places that normally you'd have to send ships and deep sea submersibles, and it's just a super big process to get down there at all. And instead you could have kind of like a constant, not real time, but a constant stream of information of the deep sea. I don't know. It turns a place that is so inaccessible and you only visit it, once in a while, turns it into something that you can interact with it constantly, and that is that's very cool. It's very cool.
I think you're actually onto something, because when you look at the video, it talks about what they do to deploy this thing. It's in kind of a box. And the box goes down to some level and stops, and then it opens up to release this little drone-like robot. So why not have the box have some power creation capability to do exactly what you're talking about? Maybe that could be a possibility. That's a fun thought.
Extend the life, but still very, very cool. And that's story number 3. Going where no robot has gone. No, I'm actually, robots only go there. Story number 3. Story number 4. Let's go ahead and talk about, Ralph, Wi-Fi. It's a crazy technology. It's around us all the time. And if you're like my house, boy, not only do we have one place that transmits Wi-Fi, we actually have about like 9 things that transmit Wi-Fi. Like, we are just bombarded with this stuff. It is all around us. And, well, how about utilizing it to detect depression in older adults, which, I never really thought of as, and I know detecting depression, not the easiest thing, and it's a, very complex issue.
Yeah.
But, to be able to kind of determine, hey, maybe you're displaying some of the trends, some of the symptoms. I guess, Ralph, this is part of almost like the development of telemedicine, except it's when you put these sensors in and you kind of constantly have that stream of information, you can pick up on things faster than your, annual doctor visit. And hopefully it will, help people's lives. So story number 4.
Yeah, story number 4. And again, what we usually do on our Friday segments, Ben and I like to end with a medical technology, medical science research related story. And this one comes from medicalexpress.com. Wonderful website. Headline: Wi-Fi based technology developed to detect depression in older adults. And I'm reminded too, in the show notes, whenever possible, I include the link to the research paper, the very geeky, in-depth research papers for all of these stories. So that's there for you as well with this one. So here we go. A new study published in JMIR Aging documents the development and testing of a new AI model called HOPE, which uses Wi-Fi based motion sensor data to detect depression in older adults without relying on intrusive wearable devices. That was the goal here. Now, HOPE stands for home-based older adults' depression prediction. The research highlights a novel machine learning model that accurately detected depression among participants. This is very early research, folks. The study, created by researchers at the McGill University and Mila Quebec AI Institute, aimed to determine whether everyday movement and sleep patterns collected through Wi-Fi based sensors could provide early indicators of depression in adults 65 years of age and older. Wow.
I'm sorry. I was completely caught up on how the hope and, kind of I think they're called anagrams when you kind of put it does not line up at all with the acronym. There we go. How it did not line up at all with home-based older adults depression prediction model. I'm assuming because it's from Quebec that it may be in French. It works out, so we're going to go with that. But yeah, okay. Moving on. Still good. Early indicators of depression.
I asked one of my AI outlets, what is French for home-based older adult depression prediction, and see what it comes back with.
For real.
Okay. So here we go, going on with the story here. With an accuracy rate of above 87%, this innovative approach presents a promising solution for early intervention and non-intrusive mental health monitoring. That's the key, non-intrusive, offering an alternative to traditional methods that require direct patient engagement. Traditional detection methods, including clinical interviews and wearable-based monitoring, are often resource-intensive, intrusive, or inconvenient, particularly for older adults who may struggle with technology adoption. The HOPE model addresses these challenges by leveraging existing Wi-Fi infrastructure, enabling continuous passive monitoring without requiring any active participation from users. My brain went right to Alzheimer's patients and that sort of thing, too. You can think about this could be applied to help there. Now, one of the things we're going to find out that really made this article super interesting, and I know we're spending a lot of time on it, but I think it's worth it, is the kind of artificial intelligence they are talking about. So a key aspect of the HOPE model is the integration of explainable AI. Explainable AI. I'm not an expert. That was the first time I came in contact with this term, and we're going to learn more about that in just a moment. So a key aspect, again, HOPE model is the integration of explainable AI techniques, ensuring transparency and clinical interpretability. It can be interpreted easily. The researchers used explainable machine learning models, to identify the most influential factors in depression detection. Okay,
I was just thinking that, because, traditionally AI is a black box. You train it, you put in data, and it's completely unreadable. But I guess for a medical purpose, that's a negative. That's not a positive. So
that's exactly right. You're right on target. There's stories we've done in the recent past about designing a chip with AI, and the people who turn loose the AI large language model to do its thing have no idea how it came up with the solution it came up with. That's normally what's going on with AI. This is this explainable machine learning models. And that's so interesting to me. A little side note on that, explainable machine learning models, often referred to as explainable AI, are systems designed to make decision-making processes of machine learning algorithms transparent and understandable to humans. And there's more information about that, quite a bit more. I inserted into the show notes. Check that out. So going back to the story, the results underscored the important role of sleep-related features, including average sleep duration, frequency of sleep interruptions, and frailty levels as primary indicators of depression. By making these AI-driven predictions interpretable and clinically meaningful, the HOPE model enhances trust and facilitates early detection of depression among older adults in the community. The study highlights the importance of sleep-related factors in detecting depression. The analysis revealed that most influential factors were sleep duration, the number and duration of sleep interruptions, and the level of frailty. The study demonstrates the feasibility of using smart home technology, which is already with us. That part's great. The underpinning infrastructure already with us, right? So the study demonstrates the feasibility of using smart home technology for mental health assessments. And while these findings are promising, larger studies are needed to provide further evidence for this approach. Folks, again, a classic example of what we do every Friday. We're looking at early research, twinkle in the eye. Great promise, not here right now, but a great step forward. So let's see what happens. And to wrap things up, this technology could support early intervention efforts and improve the quality of life for older adults at risk of depression. Wow.
It really makes me think about like the because a couple of months ago we did a story about how Apple did a large scale test with their Apple Watches, and they essentially gave the data to researchers, and they said, hey, you're a user, would you like to opt in, let researchers use your data for studies. I'm sure this is something similar, and I don't know about you, but I use a Fitbit has a sleep analysis kind of thing, and you can opt in there. I'm sure Garmin has one, and I'm sure Apple has one. Like a lot of these sleeping apps, I'm sure package the data and let it be used for research purposes. Ralph, like whenever something new like this comes out, you always have to ask, is this something old that's just being, kind of rebranded as new, or is this an actual breakthrough? And I think being able to collect and interpret, analyze all this data either through AI, which is more and more the case, or just being able to collect it from the millions of devices that all of us are now, I hope, voluntarily wearing. I hope more people sign up or let researchers use the data that your smartwatch or your phone collects, because it enables stuff like this, and stuff like this is going to help a lot of people. So great to see, for sure.
Yes.
So there you go. So story number 4, very uplifting. Stuff like that is only going to get better and better. Doesn't matter if it's disease, doesn't matter if it's depression or any other thing. Hey, detection and early detection is important, and it's going to happen. Okay, so story number 4, and you may be thinking, hey, we're done. No, not quite. Honorable mentions. These are at the end of the show. It really goes to show that, Ralph doesn't just go out there and just be like, okay, first 4 stories I see. There you go. That's the show. No, he actually combs through, picks through, and is discerning, but to a point, because we try to keep the show to a compressed 30-minute, kind of listening, which, looking at the clock right now, we overshot it a little. That's okay. Now, with that being said, honorable mentions are stories that we just don't have time for. They would have made it into the show if we were still doing our 2-hour program, but these are stories that are still great. You should definitely pay attention to. You should go read and look at, and they are in the show notes at the end of all the stories that we did. So, Ralph, if we can at least give them the headlines, then we can hopefully get them to go and check this out at computeramerica.com. So
you got it. And this week's honorable mentions, there are 4 of them, happen to be all medical news related. So I'm kind of was on a medical kick. But here's a story from MIT, their news outlet, their website, which is absolutely spectacular, by the way. Headline: MIT engineers turn skin cells directly into neurons for cell therapy. Subhead: a new, highly efficient process for performing this conversion could make it easier to develop therapies for spinal cord injuries and diseases like ALS. Wow, wonderful, uplifting story. Check it out. The next one. This is so wild. Rosemary and sage could lead to better Alzheimer's treatment. This is from Discover magazine.
I mean, my grandma,
fascinating. Yeah,
my grandma could have told you that. She knew that very well.
Yeah, rosemary and sage. Wow. Okay. And the next one, scrolling down here we go, from phys.org, which is short for physics.org. Scientists develop magnesium-enriched nanofiber patches for safer wound healing. Ben, over the years, we've seen so many stories about techniques, research, devices, and so forth to help accelerate wound healing. This is another one. Check it out. And I think here we go. Our last story in honorable mentions comes from scienceadvances.org. Headline: rapidly self-healing electronic skin for machine learning. Wow. Assisted physiological and movement evaluation. Amazing stuff. Great research. Please check it out. Come out to computeramerica.com and get the show notes.
I think what that's getting at is Terminator. That's where it's eventually getting to. So Ralph, amazing stories that you've picked out. That was perfect. And ladies and gentlemen, computeramerica.com one last time, because that's where you're going to find all the links, all the articles, all the honorable mentions, and we'll have a link in the description everywhere that you hear this, and of course right there on our homepage. So Ralph, I want to thank you so much for putting this together. As always, it was amazing, and we will be here every single Friday to do this, and hey, hopefully give you something to go out into the weekend with a little bit on an upbeat note, and hey, do something fun. We'll catch you here next week. Everyone have a great time, and Ralph, thank you. Everyone, thank you for listening. Catch you here next time. Have a good one. Bye everyone.